Street Journal is reporting that a woman was paid $130,000 a month before the election to keep quiet about a sexual encounter with Donald Trump. According to this story in the Journal, Trump had this encounter with an adult film star who goes by the name Stormy Daniels in 2006 at a celebrity golf tournament. The Journal says this new report of hush money comes from people familiar with the matter, but the president's longtime lawyer, Michael Cohen, is hitting back hard, saying these rumors have circulated time and again since 2011. President Trump once again vehemently denies any such occurrence, as has Ms. Daniels. Cohen did not directly address the idea of a payment, but he did give CNN this signed statement he says is from Stormy Daniels, saying, "My involvement with Donald Trump was limited to a few public appearances and nothing more. When I met Donald Trump, he was gracious, professional, and a complete gentleman to me and everyone in my presence. Rumors that I have received hush money from Donald Trump are completely false. If indeed I did have a relationship with Donald Trump, trust me, you wouldn't be reading about it in the news, you'd be reading about it in my book." The fact of the matter is these stories are not true. CNN has tried to reach out to Ms. Daniels for independent confirmation. We have not yet spoken to her, and Trump's lawyer, Cohen, has not provided contact information for her. If the alleged event nonetheless did take place, it would have occurred the year after he married now First Lady Melania Trump. The White House, however, is calling this old, recycled news, strongly denied prior to the election.
And South Korea announcing moments ago that they have agreed to hold military talks after meeting for the first time face-to-face in 2 years. Our Will Ripley is on the ground there. He joins us live near the DMZ with all of the breaking details. What have you learned, Will?
It's really been a remarkable day here on the Korean Peninsula, Allison, because when previous talks like this have taken place, it's taken weeks to hammer out the kind of agreements that they agreed to today. As you mentioned, upcoming military talks on easing tensions. North Korea has agreed to send a high-level delegation to the Olympics, including athletes, a press corps, a taekwondo and performing arts troupe, a cheering section, and they also reactivated a long-dormant military hotline. They announced that today, even though it happened almost a week ago, and they said that they're considering the possibility of reunions of divided families on the Korean Peninsula. So in the short term, it's a win for both sides. South Korea hopefully gets the peaceful Olympics they've been hoping for, uninterrupted by a North Korean missile launch or nuclear test that could scare away spectators and disrupt the event. North Korea gets an all-expense-paid trip to the Olympics. They got the U.S. and South Korea to postpone joint military drills. But this is key. North Korea's chief negotiator also expressed very strong discontent just minutes ago with even the mention of denuclearization, because South Korea had indicated that they hoped that talks would involve North Korea potentially giving up their nuclear weapons. North Korea has said repeatedly that is not going to happen, and they said that yet again at the meetings, which are happening just a few minutes from where I'm standing right now. The bridge behind me actually leads over to North Korea. We're just right along the demilitarized zone. So the key here, if the Olympics go peacefully and there are further discussions, what will happen next? Obviously, the U.S. and their allies are hoping that North Korea would be willing to denuclearize in exchange for the lifting of sanctions. But again, North Korea's chief negotiator saying denuclearization not on the table.
You said that Trump's remarks dishonor the celebrated American creed and respect for diversity and human dignity. The Union also added that the Trump administration has a huge misunderstanding of the continent. Trump's comments were also condemned by a group of African ambassadors to the United Nations, who demanded a retraction and apology for Trump's outrageous, racist and xenophobic comments, The Hill reported. On Friday, AU Chief Mao Sufaki's spokeswoman Eva Counto had also said Trump's comment truly flies in the face of accepted behavior and practice. This is even more hurtful given the historical reality of just how many Africans arrived in the United States as slaves, and also terribly surprising as the United States remains a massively positive example as just how migration can give birth to a nation, Counto said. The comments were clearly racist, Counto said, but stressed the U.S. was much stronger than the sum total of one man. The United Nations Human Rights Office on Friday had also rejected Trump's comments, branding his remarks as racist. The U.S. president tweeted a denial early Friday about the comments allegedly made on Thursday at a White House meeting with lawmakers on immigration reform.
Shanghai, China on Saturday, Jan 13, pledged to continue playing a constructive role in maintaining and implementing the Iran nuclear deal, after U.S. President Donald Trump set an ultimatum to fix disastrous flaws in our deal. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif by phone that implementation of the deal had not been derailed but would face some new complicating factors, the state news agency Xinhua reported. Continuing to implement the nuclear deal was the responsibility of all parties concerned and the common wish of the international community, Wang was quoted as saying during the call, which took place on a visit to Rwanda. The deal would help uphold the international non-proliferation regime, maintain regional peace and stability and solve other hot issues around the world, he said. He urged Iran to remain calm and continue to fulfill its obligations under the deal. On Friday, Trump agreed to waive sanctions against Iran that were lifted as part of the international deal but said it would be the last time unless conditions were met to fix what he called significant flaws in the deal. His ultimatum puts pressure on Europeans, key backers and parties to the 2015 international agreement to curb Iran's nuclear program to satisfy Trump, who wants the pact strengthened with a separate agreement within 120 days. Zarif responded on Twitter that the deal was not renegotiable and that Trump's stance amounts to desperate attempts to undermine a solid multilateral agreement. While Trump approved the sanctions waiver, the Treasury Department announced new, targeted sanctions against 14 entities and people, including the head of Iran's judiciary, Sayyid Ali Larijani, a close ally of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran said on Saturday it would retaliate against the new sanctions, although it did not specify how.
Trump taps long historical vein against immigration. Washington, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The words on the Statue of Liberty have beckoned comers to the nation of immigrants for more than a century. But not with President Donald Trump at the gate. Unlike any U.S. leader in decades, Trump has attacked immigration, slashed legal arrivals, called to expel millions of non-citizens, and invited only wealthy and educated foreigners, with an evident preference for white Europeans. On Thursday, Trump allegedly demanded to know why the U.S. accepted people from shithole places like Haiti and Africa, and suggested the country should instead draw immigrants from Norway. It's a sharp turn for a country that defines itself by its open door and its melting pot culture. Immigrants were threats. But historians say U.S. history is pockmarked by immigration backlashes and a constant ambivalence by well-established Americans over whether they want to continue being an immigrant country. When you look at the whole history of the United States, one of the most striking aspects of it is the ways in which the debate over immigration has been racialized, said Julie Green, a professor of history at the University of Maryland. In 1790 the Naturalization Act aimed to keep blacks from becoming citizens, the Alien Act of 1798 targeted French, the Page Act of 1875 prohibited Asian labor migrants, and in 1924 a sweeping new Immigration Act took aim at Southern and Eastern Europeans, largely comprised of Catholics and Jews. There was tremendous anti-immigration sentiment throughout the 19th century. At different points in American history, different types of immigrants were considered threats to the United States, said Alan Lichtman, a political historian and professor at American University. Massive waves spurred backlash. Before Trump, Warren Harding made anti-immigration the main plank in his successful 1920 presidential campaign. Harding came to power after a 40-year boom in which about 22 million immigrants poured into the country, and Americans were worried that the latest wave of Southern and Eastern Europeans, largely Jews and Catholics, would introduce inferior races into the country and spearhead Bolshevism. Similar to Trump, He portrayed himself as an America First president, Lichtman said. The country wrestled with smaller waves over the subsequent decades. During the Depression of the 1930s, there was a backlash against the influx of Mexicans that the 1924 law had given rise to. After World War II came a movement to stem the arrival of refugees. In 1965 the quota system which favored Northern Europeans was eliminated. Authorities sought to encourage the arrival of people with skills and educations and also to allow more family reunification, what Trump has labeled chain migration. As a result, legal immigration soared to 1 million people a year, a large percentage of them Asian, while illegal immigration from Mexico leapt. In 1986 President Ronald Reagan offered amnesty to 3.2 million illegal immigrants, but that failed to stem illegal border crossers. 4 years later, President George H.W. Bush took aim at the lopsided arrivals from Asia with the Green Card Lottery, which aimed at diversifying arrivals across the globe. Economic upheaval, terror attacks. But by the 2000s anti-immigration sentiment arose anew. It had multiple roots. The September 11, 2001 and subsequent attacks that have focused fears on Muslims, whose presence surged with the lottery system, was one. Another was the deep change in the structure of the economy, which disrupted communities around the country. A third was demographic change that left white people a minority in an increasing number of communities around the country. Very rapid growth in immigration does sometimes lead to pushback, said Andrew Selye, president of the Migration Policy Institute. We are at a point where America is becoming a more diverse society in ways that many Americans are not accustomed to. With illegal immigrants reaching 12 million, mostly from Mexico and Central America, both Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama tried to stem the flow while attempting to give many a legal path to citizenship. Yet neither, point out historians, made immigration a political issue like Trump did to win election in 2016. Trump, very neatly among modern presidents, has sought to exploit that for political purposes, said Lichtman. There is a strong minority anti-immigrant sentiment that Trump tapped into. It's not the majority sentiment. Unlike anyone since Harding, historians said, Trump made a clear political calculus aimed at whites discomfited by economic and demographic shifts. It's easy to generate anxieties about this, Green said. He's definitely more extreme and he's definitely using a kind of dog whistle racial language, different from the last two presidents.